For nearly half a century, Hollywood believed that Meryl Streep hated no one. There were no scandals, no public feuds, no visible enemies. She moved through conflicts like a seasoned diplomat, smiling, staying silent, and leaving before anything had the chance to ignite. To the public, Streep represented the moral gold standard of acting, supremely talented, disciplined, and always impeccable. But at the age of 76, that wall began to crack. In a rare moment, without a script, without defenses, Streep admitted a truth she had kept hidden her entire life. There were people she didn't merely disagree with, but genuinely hated. When the names were spoken, Hollywood fell silent. They were not nobodies, not minor disputes, but icons. Faces the audience believed Streep had once respected, even admired. The unsettling part was not the list itself. It was the reason behind it. And above all, the final name, the one person Meryl Streep has never forgiven. Meryl Streep was born in 1949 in Summit, New Jersey, and grew up in an environment where discipline and standards were valued more highly than emotional display. From the age of 12, she began vocal training, not as a pastime, but as a methodical discipline, learning early to treat her voice as a tool that demanded absolute control. Studying acting in high school, then pursuing formal training at Vassar College and later Yale, reflected a consistent choice: long-term investment in fundamentals rather than the pursuit of shortcuts. Those years of rigorous education shaped a lasting belief in Streep, that emotion does not exist freely, but must be organized, controlled, and placed in service of a character's meaning. This outlook forged a professional temperament that was firm and exacting, with little tolerance for arbitrariness or unchecked improvisation. As she entered the professional world, Streep did not seek attention through personality or appearance, but through a craft that had been meticulously honed. She made her Broadway debut in 1975, a space where actors have no margin for correction, and each performance is a direct reckoning with the audience. Her early film roles, such as Julia, 1977, and The Deer Hunter, 1978, were modest in screen time, yet revealing in intent, restrained, quiet, and precise, standing in sharp contrast to the more explosive acting styles common at the time. Around the same period, her performance in the television miniseries Holocaust earned her an Emmy Award, reinforcing her image as an actress who regarded acting as serious labor rather than a platform for ego. Even in this early phase, Streep displayed a defining trait: an unwillingness to compromise on carelessness in character construction, even when that stance made her difficult to integrate within a working environment. From the late 1970s through the mid-1980s, Meryl Streep entered the phase that solidified her position at the very top of her profession. Roles in Kramer vs. Kramer, 1979, and Sophie's Choice, 1982, not only brought her Academy Awards, but also clearly articulated her professional philosophy: acting as a process of controlled, psychological immersion, not the uncontrolled release of emotion. Her command of vocal tone, linguistic transformation, and the recreation of complex inner lives allowed her to master a succession of roles demanding exceptional precision, from The French Lieutenant's Woman and Silkwood to Out of Africa. This success drew an increasingly firm boundary. She accepted intense labor, but rejected the use of acting methods as justification for intrusion, chaos, or harm within the creative process. It was at this very peak that the gap between Streep and colleagues who favored instinctive, coercive, or damaging approaches became impossible to reconcile, laying the groundwork for the deeper conflicts that would follow. Meryl Streep is not known for hating people. She is known for never lowering her standards, and there are certain names, regardless of talent or power, that cross that line. He stands at the top of the list, not because of scandal or open hostility, But because this was the clearest and most profound clash of working philosophies Meryl Streep ever experienced, a difference deep enough that she would never choose to collaborate with him a second time. For Meryl Streep, acting is a rigorous discipline. Every scene is prepared as a complete structure, character motivation, emotional rhythm, inner psychology, all carefully dissected before the camera ever rolls. Precision is not optional. It is the foundation. Alec Baldwin represents the opposite approach. He is famous for his powerful instincts, high improvisational energy, and a belief that truth only emerges in the living moment. Changing dialogue on set, adjusting rhythm based on immediate feeling. These are practices Baldwin considers natural, even essential. When the two appeared together in It's Complicated, 2009, the initial expectation was optimistic, that their contrast would generate a unique comedic chemistry. And at first, the production believed it might. But as filming progressed, a different reality surfaced. There were no loud arguments, no visible confrontations, but there was a growing professional misalignment that became harder to conceal. Streep would pause for a brief fraction of a second whenever Baldwin altered dialogue mid-scene, just long enough for the crew to sense that the rhythm had slipped out of its intended structure. Baldwin, for his part, openly believed that excessive preparation risked suffocating emotional vitality, and he never hid that view. According to those present on set, there was one rehearsal where the rhythm collapsed entirely. No voices were raised, no debate followed. Streep spoke only once, short, composed, and colder than the room itself. Comedy has to stay anchored to truth, otherwise it's just noise. Baldwin replied with his familiar philosophy, half joking, half serious. If you rehearse something to death, the truth dies with it. No one was right. No one was wrong. But from that moment, a boundary quietly formed. The crucial point was this: the two approaches could not coexist even without anyone needing to say so out loud. Ironically, in sharp contrast to Streep's private conclusion, Alec Baldwin later described his time working with her in glowing terms. In a retrospective post, he shared a photo of himself dancing with Streep in It's Complicated and wrote, "I once made a movie with this woman. It was a dream come true." Baldwin, often described by colleagues as a magnet on set, clearly carried a warm memory from the experience. For Streep, however, the experience led to a distinctly different resolution. After It's Complicated, she never accepted another project involving Alec Baldwin. No statements, no explanations, no severed ties or public criticism, just a silent, decisive professional choice. Today, they remain courteous at major industry events, respectful in public remarks, impeccable before the media. Yet the distance between them is the distance of two artists who understand one fundamental truth. There are people you do not need to hate, only to recognize that you should never share the same film set with them again. And for that reason, Alec Baldwin stands at the top of the list. Not as an adversary, but as the clearest boundary in the disciplined career of Meryl Streep. If Alec Baldwin represented a clash of working rhythm, then with Kevin Kline, the fracture ran deeper, into the very understanding of what acting is. For Meryl Streep, performance was never casual spontaneity. It was a form of severe labor, demanding discipline, self-restraint, and an almost absolute responsibility to the character one inhabits. In Sophie's Choice, Streep entered the role through a process the press itself described as extreme. She lost weight to alter her physical presence, learned Polish and German, and sustained the character's accent throughout filming. For Streep, language was not a vehicle of communication. It was history, identity, and the scar of a person torn from her roots. The voice she built for Sophie was not technique, it was memory. It carried fractured identity and an unhealed wound. Kevin Kline, by contrast, trusted instinct and the immediate flow of emotion. He believed acting reached its peak when freed from excessive structure or technical preparation, when feeling was allowed to lead rather than be governed by detail. That difference surfaced unmistakably during a tense rehearsal, when Kline abruptly asked, "Do audiences really care more about your vowels than your emotions?" For Streep, this was not a professional query. It negated the entire foundation she was constructing for the character. The reason Sophie spoke as she did, existed as she did, and carried pain in that particular way. After filming wrapped, Kline remarked in an interview that Streep's approach felt a bit academic. It may have been unintended. It may have carried no malice. But to Streep, who had traded both physical and psychological endurance for that role, the comment landed like a quiet blade, cutting straight into what she considered the core of the craft. From that point on, courtesy remained, but trust was gone. According to industry insiders, Streep quietly vetoed scripts bearing Kevin Kline's name for decades afterward. No announcements, no explanations, just a boundary drawn and never lifted. They still crossed paths at awards ceremonies, still exchanged impeccable smiles for the cameras. Yet beneath that polished civility lay a clear reality. Between the academic and the flesh and blood, they would never again stand on the same side. Third on this list is Jack Nicholson. Hollywood didn't just dream about a collaboration between Meryl Streep and Jack Nicholson, it actually happened. Twice. And both times, according to multiple behind-the-scenes accounts, left lasting tremors. The two first worked together in 1985 on Heartburn. According to a biography of Nicholson by Mark Elliott, the shoot ended in a tense atmosphere. The book records claims that Streep allegedly forced Nicholson out of her hotel room and declared she would never work with him again because of repeated sexual advances. Elliott presents this as reported material. Streep never publicly confirmed it, and Nicholson never directly responded. 2 years later, despite what was described as a definitive break, they reunited in Ironweed. It was during this period that the most explosive personal rumors surfaced. Elliott's biography asserts that Nicholson, long famed for his magnetism with women, was rumored to have entered a romantic relationship with Streep on set. Elliott recounts intimate anecdotes so vivid they imply the two may have slept together in Nicholson's Winnebago trailer, describing it with his characteristic metaphor: the vehicle appearing balanced on 4 overworked toy springs throughout the shoot. Elliott also suggests the context was unusually tangled. Nicholson was allegedly entangled in overlapping relationships, still loosely involved with Angelica Houston, while also rumored to be seeing Veronica Cartwright. Once Ironweed began filming, the gossip spread so quickly that, according to the book, people on set talked less about the script or director and more about Jack and Meryl. Their conspicuous closeness, followed by synchronized denials from both sides. Yet, if private life created noise, it was the clash in professional philosophy that drew an uncrossable line. Nicholson was famous for a cultivated irreverence, viewing acting as an expression of attitude and star power. In a half-joking remark that circulated widely in Hollywood, he once scoffed, "Preparation? That's just intellectual self-indulgence." For many, this was simply Jack Nicholson being Jack Nicholson. For Streep, it was an affront to the profession itself. She regarded acting as a moral obligation, respect for the character, the story, and the audience. Those two worldviews could not be reconciled. And from that point on, regardless of what biographies recounted or rumors suggested, a clear professional truth emerged. After Ironweed, Streep never accepted another project that involved Jack Nicholson. No statements, no scandals, just quiet refusals. The paradox is that, over time, Streep, who remained in a stable decades-long marriage to Don Gummer, and Nicholson continued to appear courteous, even warm, in public settings. No loud hostility, no attacks, only an absence that could not be ignored. 2 collaborations, followed by decades of silence. That silence transformed the Streep-Nicholson dynamic into a Hollywood Cold War. No shots fired, no declarations made, yet powerful enough to close the door on ever sharing the frame again. The 4th name on the list is Jeremy Irons. In theory, Meryl Streep and Jeremy Irons should have been an ideal pairing. Both classically trained, both forged on the stage, both deeply committed to technique and professional discipline. They shared an academic vocabulary of acting, yet spoke it in entirely different voices. For Streep, acting is a process of continuous excavation. She approaches a character the way an archaeologist approaches a site, stripping away layers of history, habits, and distortions in voice, breath, and rhythm. In her view, voice is not a conduit for emotion. It is biography. How a character speaks reveals how that person has lived. No detail is decorative. Jeremy Irons moves in the opposite direction. He believes in restraint, in tightly controlled structure, in emotion compressed rather than displayed. Irons treats acting like architecture, clean lines, deliberate composition, negative space carefully measured. The less an actor shows, he believes, the more the audience is invited to supply. That difference was not merely theoretical. It surfaced directly in rehearsal. As Streep meticulously refined her voice, adjusting each vowel to reflect background and psychological state, Irons paused and offered what seemed like an innocuous question. Do audiences really care more about phonetics than emotion? For Irons, it was a matter of expressive economy. For Streep, it struck at the foundation itself. In her worldview, emotion does not exist independently of language. If the voice is wrong, the emotion is wrong, no matter how sincere it feels. There was no argument, no visible tension. But according to those present, the atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. From that moment on, they continued working together with impeccable professionalism and absolute distance. On screen, they stood close, eyes met, bodies separated by only a few steps. But behind the camera, they occupied parallel worlds. Irons maintained cool minimalism, never allowing feeling to spill beyond the frame. Streep dug deeper still, as if determined to prove that truth only emerges when one reaches the bottom. The resulting scenes carried a distinctive friction, not a conflict of script, but a conflict of method. One believed in the power of compression. The other believed in the obligation to excavate. Later, when speaking in general terms about differences in acting philosophy, Streep never mentioned Irons by name. She offered only a single quiet line, enough for those in the industry to understand immediately. Some actors mistake restraint for depth and stillness for truth. No name was necessary. For anyone who had seen them work together, the boundary was already unmistakable. Meryl Streep genuinely does not like Gwyneth Paltrow, and there are reasons for that. For Streep, the issue was never youth. She has never resented new faces, nor objected to a young actor rising quickly. What makes her keep her distance is the illusion of depth. When image is mistaken for substance, and privilege is repackaged under a more palatable name. Talent. In Streep's eyes, Gwyneth Paltrow was not an irritating individual. She became a symbol of a new Hollywood that began taking shape in the late 1990s. A world where fame arrived more gently, paths were already paved, and recognition sometimes preceded the rigorous honing of craft that earlier generations considered non-negotiable. All of those differences crystallized on one pivotal Oscar night. Shakespeare in Love swept the ceremony, and Paltrow walked onto the stage to accept the Best Actress statuette. That same night, Streep, after delivering one of her most painful and demanding performances in One True Thing, went home empty-handed. In front of the cameras, Streep smiled. No complaints, no visible emotion. Yet afterward, she described that year's race with a chilling phrase, "a marketing contest dressed up as an awards show." It was not an attack on Paltrow personally, but a direct strike at the mechanism redefining artistic value. From that moment, a very specific silence set in. When asked about the next generation, Streep remained generous with praise, but she never mentioned Gwyneth Paltrow. Instead, she consistently highlighted actresses who embodied the value system she believed in: Cate Blanchett, Amy Adams, Jessica Chastain, performers associated with discipline, rigorous preparation, and depth earned through time. That silence lasted long enough to become noticeable. On the other side, Paltrow sensed the distance as well. According to someone who once worked with her, she sighed backstage, half confused, half helpless. "Meryl has never liked me. I don't understand why." Perhaps Streep never saw it as a matter of liking or disliking. For her, this was not a personal conflict, nor a grudge. It was a collision between two value systems, one that treats acting as long-term labor where depth must be paid for, and another that reflects an era in which image, campaigns, and timing can determine recognition. Streep never attacked Paltrow. She simply refused to call the same thing by the same name. And in Meryl Streep's world, that refusal, cool, silent, and without declaration, speaks more clearly than any expression of hatred ever could. The sixth name is Dustin Hoffman. This was no longer a difference in style, nor a conventional professional clash. For Meryl Streep, it was an experience that permanently defined a moral boundary, one that would never again be crossed in her career. Kramer vs. Kramer is celebrated as a model Hollywood courtroom drama exploring divorce, child custody, and the painful maturation of adults forced to confront parental responsibility. On screen, the film radiates restraint, empathy, and humanism. Behind the camera, it was an entirely different space, one where power, ego, and extremity were justified under the name of art. From the outset, the working relationship between Hoffman and Streep was described as tense. Hoffman was alleged to have harassed Streep throughout the production, and the two never established even a minimal foundation of trust. In a 1979 interview with Time magazine, Streep stated that Hoffman groped her during their first meeting, though her representatives later said the article did not fully or accurately reflect the context of that encounter, even if details were later nuanced. The sense of violation itself could not be erased. Artistically, the conflict ran deeper. Streep firmly defended her approach to Joanna Kramer as a woman who was fragile, internally conflicted, and deeply human, not a cold figure who simply abandoned her child. Hoffman objected fiercely. To him, emotion was not something to discuss, but something to be forced out under pressure. Deeply committed to his interpretation of method acting, Hoffman repeatedly hurled insults at Streep, even mocking her by invoking the name of her recently deceased fiancé, John Cazale, bluntly claiming it would help her perform better. This was not about activating emotion. It was about exploiting a wound that had not yet begun to heal. On set, Hoffman was also known for psychologically intimidating behavior. He once smashed a wine glass against a wall without warning Streep, though he had informed the cameraman, sending shards of glass into her hair. Streep's response was not rage, but the cold alertness of someone realizing she was standing in an unsafe environment. She said only, "Next time you do that, I'd appreciate it if you let me know." The breaking point came during Streep's very first scene in the film, also the first scene of her entire film career. No rehearsal, no warning, no consent. Hoffman slapped her hard across the face, and the take was kept in the film. In 2018, Streep publicly confirmed, "This was my first movie, and it was my first scene in my first movie, and he slapped me. And you see that in the film. That was overstepping." The set fell silent. Not because of the slap itself, but because no one stopped it. Streep did not scream. She did not cry. She did not ignite a media storm. But from that moment on, a door closed permanently. The bitter irony is that Kramer versus Kramer became a resounding triumph. The film grossed over $173 million worldwide, topped the box office in 1979, earned critical acclaim, and swept major awards. Hoffman won the Academy Award for Best Actor. Streep won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. Professionally, it was a breakthrough. Humanly, it was a price Streep would never agree to pay again. After that film, she never worked with Dustin Hoffman again. No announcements, no forgiveness, just a boundary drawn and maintained until the end of her career. Years later, looking back, Streep summed up the experience with a sentence short, cold, and brutally precise. Effective professionally, but unbearable personally. And here the audience understands, among the people Meryl Streep could not and would not share a creative space with. Dustin Hoffman was not merely a case of disagreement. He became the clearest embodiment of what she rejected outright. When violence is disguised as genius and human dignity is treated as expendable. For nearly half a century, Meryl Streep built her reputation not only through her roles but through a cold, deliberate principle. She did not use her public voice to settle personal conflicts. To her, conflict was not something to be won. It was something that required boundaries. When her professional method was dismissed, she withdrew from the project. When she was hurt, she chose silence. When she was misunderstood, she let time answer for her. That silence was not weakness. It was the authority of someone who knows exactly where she stands and does not need to prove it every day. This time, however, silence was no longer enough. Not because she wanted recognition or vindication, but because the context had changed. What was once labeled harsh working methods, artistic temperament, or method acting is now being called by its proper name. Boundaries once crossed behind closed doors, on sets, in rehearsal rooms, have become an ethical issue for the entire industry. When the story is no longer about how I was treated, but about what this profession permits to happen, silence begins to resemble complicity. There is a deeper reason still. Streep understands the weight of a voice used too late. She did not speak when she was young because she knew she would be branded difficult or uncooperative. She did not speak at the height of her power because she knew her words could be framed as an abuse of influence. Only after going far enough, when her career no longer needed protection, could she speak without turning truth into a weapon. This was not a sudden accusation. It was delayed testimony from someone who waited until the truth was ripe. And she did not speak for herself alone. When Streep finally spoke, she spoke for young actors who believed endurance was the price of survival. She spoke for those who thought talent justified every behavior. She spoke to redraw the line between acting and violence, between passion and abuse of power. Speaking now was not about prosecuting the past. It was about laying a foundation for the future. In the end, the simplest reason remains. Some silences protect dignity, and others betray conscience. Streep chose silence when it protected the profession. She chose to speak when silence began to harm it. And that is the difference between a star reacting emotionally and an artist who understands that timing itself is part of professional ethics. If judged by numbers alone, Meryl Streep is a living record. More than 20 Academy Award nominations, 3 Oscars, and dozens of roles that defined successive eras of American cinema. But her true legacy does not live on a scorecard. It lives in standards. Before Streep, great acting was often associated with display, explosive emotion, booming dialogue, moments engineered to impress. Streep did the opposite. She returned acting to intellectual labor and moral responsibility. Understanding a character before expressing them, respecting language, voice, and context as living layers of memory, and treating every role as a commitment to truth rather than to attention. That influence spread on multiple levels. For the generations that followed, and Streep drew a new line. Talent is not enough without discipline. Instinct only matters when guided by understanding. It is no coincidence that the actors she openly admires, those who excavate psychology and commit patiently to the craft, have become the new benchmark for what serious acting means in Hollywood. At the industry level, Streep helped change how studios viewed female roles. She proved that complex, contradictory, even uncomfortable women could still reach wide audiences and achieve commercial success. As a result, the space for women's stories about power, aging, and moral choice expanded and endured. At the deepest level, Streep's legacy is the right to purposeful silence. For decades, she did not build her image through scandal, nor consolidate power through public confrontation. She let the work speak, and when she finally had to speak, her words carried the weight of time, experience, and a life already validated through action. That created a rare kind of influence, making composure a form of strength and standards a form of legacy. That legacy is not loud, it is durable, it spreads quietly, and it continues to shape how Hollywood understands acting, not as performance, but as a long-term commitment to human truth. Meryl Streep never needed to win confrontations to earn recognition. She did not build her career by tearing others down, nor define herself through public conflict. What she pursued for more than half a century was something that sounds simple, yet grows rarer in Hollywood: professional standards. The names that collided with her, whether reckless stars, uncontrollable geniuses, or symbols of a more easygoing Hollywood, were never publicly attacked by Streep. They simply stopped existing in the same world. To her, acting is not a power game, not a stage for ego, and certainly not a justification for harming others. It is labor, discipline, moral responsibility to the character, to fellow actors, and to the audience. Perhaps that is why Streep remained silent for most of her life. Not out of fear, but out of faith that the work would speak. But when boundaries blurred, when chaos was renamed method, when privilege was disguised as talent, even someone like Meryl Streep had to leave a marker, not to prosecute the past, but to remind us, acting has limits, and so does humanity. The remaining question is not just for Hollywood, but for all of us who love cinema. Where do you stand? Discipline and standards, or instinct and absolute freedom? In an industry that celebrates personality, is there still room for those who quietly hold the line? Share your perspective in the comments. We genuinely want to hear your thoughts. And if you value deep behind-the-scenes examinations of Hollywood, don't forget to like and subscribe to continue this journey with us.